Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, back with another video using the Simon Says Stamp March 2020 card kit. I can't put this stamp set or this kit away. Plus, after I did my last video doing some no-line watercoloring, it's funny, there was comments, because I'd mentioned in the video the idea about doing no-line Copic coloring with this stamp set. And I had a lot of comments of asking about it, and the funny thing was that I had already filmed a video by that point doing some no-line Copic coloring, which is something I rarely ever do. Biggest reason being I just don't have the patience, but I really wanted to try it. So what I'm doing is stamping this stamp with Ink on 3's Fade Out ink. This is a really good one for no-line watercoloring and no-line Copic coloring, pretty much any no-line coloring. And I stamped the image onto Neenah Classic Crest 80-pound solar white cardstock. You can somewhat see the lines here in the video. They're very light. That's why I stamped it twice, just so I could kind of see what I was doing. And when I started, I was doing my typical method where I go darkest to lightest, because for me it's just faster and easier. But I did one leaf like that, going from the darkest green to the lightest green, and I wasn't liking it. I wasn't liking how it was working. So I switched back to the tried and true method of going lightest to darkest, and I found that was a lot easier with this. The biggest thing with no line coloring is, like I said, you have to be patient. You have to be patient, and you have to follow the rules that I always tell people, and then I tell people I break all the time. So the biggest one being is, one, you need to be patient, and two, like with most things, it can generally look like, especially when coloring, it can generally look like such a hot mess. But hear it out, feel it out, keep going, finish it, or walk away and come back. Because more often than not, you'll think something looks horrible, go take a break or go do something else, come back to it later. And so often when you look at it with fresh eyes, it looks completely different. So I did struggle with this. I was just like, I don't know if this is going to work. But the further I got along, it's, things just start coming together, the color and everything. It's like, okay, I'm liking this. This is working. So it did take a while. I generally don't time myself when I color. I used to get asked that a lot, exactly how long did this take? I'm not someone, I'm not looking at a clock. I'm just, especially with coloring, the whole point is for it to be almost therapeutic in a sense. But only because I was filming a video for my Patreon, I'm aware of how long this took. And it took roughly 45 minutes, something like that. So you can always start, I still recommend this set to practice with no line coloring or just coloring in general, because just the style of it works really well. But I would say if you're gonna practice no line coloring, maybe use one of the smaller stamps from the set. One with only a couple blooms and a few leaves, not as many as this one, but even then, it just works. So I did all the greenery first, finish that all. Then I'm going in and doing the flowers. And with the flowers, I found I kind of was following the same guidelines for no-line watercoloring by doing the separate petals first. I just found for me that made it a lot easier to see what I was doing rather than just coloring the whole, thing with the lightest color and then trying to see where I'm supposed to add those darker colors. So by doing one petal at a time and keeping them separated, it made it just a lot easier to see what I was doing. So I went with purples for the flowers, and I've of course listed the colors here, and again was doing lightest to darkest this time because it really did give me a lot more control, and it just, I do prefer it this way. I'll probably go right back to my old ways with regular stamping in black and then coloring with Copics, but for no line, I definitely think that going lightest to darkest works a lot better. So I went in after I did the first set of petals, and then I can go in now and finish the last set of petals, seeing what I'm doing. And for me, I definitely think this is all going to be enhanced by using color pencils. You could do the whole thing with Copic markers, just use a really light touch to do the stems and whatnot. But I found, especially after doing my little bit of no-line watercoloring, having some form of color pencil, you have a lot more control and you get a lot finer of a line than you can with Copics. So I pulled out two color pencils here, just a green and a purple. Again, I was keeping it simple. You could totally amp this up by by doing like more than one shade of these colors, like get a really deep green, like nearly black, really, really deep purple, etc. But I was keeping it as simple as I possibly could. So I just went in with a darker green, and I'm just adding a really light hand of shading to the base of the leaves, and then using the pencil to trace along the lines for the stems. For these, I am using POLYCHROMOS. Honestly, you could pretty much use any color pencil. I'm sure it'd be fine. POLYCHROMOS are very nice. They're very nice. Very, very nice. Very expensive. Worth it. But again, you don't... For things like this, I honestly don't think it makes that big of a difference. But yeah. So I went in with the green, did the leaves, did the stems, and then I took the purple and I did the exact same thing. I just kind of added just a really light hand. I wasn't pressing hard at all because I didn't want... grooves in the paper or anything, but I just wanted that little bit of shading along the darkest areas. And then I would take it up a little bit just to slightly define those petals. And I did kind of the same thing with the leaves. And it kind of amps up that little bit without being too overwhelming or too crazy. And it also just made me feel better because that's the thing. That's what I love about stamping, is the whole point is you stamp it and the lines are defined for you. So when you remove that it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So I did enjoy this. This was fun. And you could amp it up. You could add more highlights and that sort of thing. But I was like, no, I'm going to stop here. Not going to add anything else. I'm too scared now at this point to wreck it, So once I was done coloring, I die cut it with one of Simon's basic rectangle wafer dies. I also die cut one of the pattern papers from the kit with the largest basic rectangle wafer die. So it ends up being 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I cut down a piece of black cardstock to be slightly larger than this little floral piece, so I can kind of frame and like mat this. And I'm going to adhere them together with some craft tacky glue. And then when I did that, I realized the black cardstock was actually just slightly too long on the one end. So I got everything kind of lined up first, and then I'm just going to trim off that little tiny bit of excess with my paper trimmer. And then once that's trimmed off, before I get to like assembling my card, I wanted to stack my die cuts. So I used the Bold Hello that comes in the kit. Really like this wafer die. There's also the Bold Thanks that I used in a previous video. I keep grabbing, like reaching for these. Thanks and Hello, I think, are my most used like wafer dies, as well as like stamp sentiments, because they can work for cover almost all types of genres. You can have hello friend, thinking of you, happy birthday, but we can just start with hello and then go from there. So anyway, stacked 3 layers of some green cardstock with the die cut, and then topped it with some of that glitter paper that comes in the kit that I die cut as well. And then I still had that floral image in my MISTI, so I just folded my card base on itself. And then I'm going to stamp that floral image with Simon's Lavender ink, doing a side fold card here, which is also out of the norm for me. But for whatever reason, in the last month or so, I've been kind of enjoying doing side fold cards. I've done top fold for so many years. People ask me that a lot, like, why do you do top fold cards? Force of habit, I guess. I don't know. I like how top fold cards look. They're just, to me, it's just been a thing. But yeah, people got me thinking again. And I was like, why not do what's wrong with side fold cards? So I've been doing more of them lately. I switch back and forth now pretty regularly, but anywho. Stamp the inside of the card. I stamped a sentiment from that set with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And then I adhered the pattern paper to the card front. And then I'm going to pop up this panel with some of Simon's Big MOMMA foam tape, just to give it that little extra bit of dimension. So covered the back of this with foam tape, peeled off the backing, and then adhered this into place on my card. Once that's adhered, I can adhere the little stacked die cut sentiment, again using the craft tacky glue. And as always, I cannot stop here. I need to add just the teeniest bit of bling. So I pulled out a couple of different sets of Studio Katia pearls, and then I have the Radiant Orchid pearls, and then I have the April crystals, and I'm going to pour these into my little triangle trays, kind of sprinkle these throughout, around the flowers and whatnot. And then once I was kind of happy with where everything was placed, I'm going to just use my Studio Katia embellishment wand and that craft tacky glue to adhere these into place using just tiny little dabs of this glue. Doesn't take much to adhere things like this. So once I've got everything adhered, this card is complete. So I will have links below the video to my blog post. We'll also have a supply list with links to all the supplies used. That'll be in the description box below the video. It'll also be on my blog, which is also linked. And on my blog, it's picture links, so it's just easier to find everything. So you can check that out if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!